Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to the Accursed. The dead have this amazing way of making their families seem benevolent, spiritual, aimed toward function, purpose, something good. The Shades like to say that they go around punishing the guilty, but they take a sick pleasure from doing so. The Zeds terminate the unnaturally long-lived, but they keep tallies to mark those they've killed. The Mavens want everyone to have a fantastic time, even if that fantastic time results in the death of the person enjoying themselves. Well, the Wardens are no different. You see, they would tell you the clue is in their name. All they care about, they say, is protecting others. That's all they care about. They just want to ensure that everyone they care about is safe. Hell, even the ones they don't care about need protecting. Who's going to take responsibility if not the Wardens? You can't be relied upon to look after yourself. The Wardens need to look after you. No, unlike the other dead families, the Wardens are saviours. They're charitable. They're kindness and compassion personified. No darkness there at all. Just remember Charles Manson, is what I say. No, he wasn't a warden. Don't be mistaken. But the Manson family were a close-knit group who believed, whether through psychoses, brainwashing, drug use, or just plain bigotry, that they were protecting themselves and others through their violent, murderous actions. Am I comparing the Wardens to the Manson family? Well, don't tell them this. The Wardens, that is. You can tell the Mansons whatever you like. There aren't many of them left now. But the Wardens are a cocktail of 1 part Manson, 3 parts Book of Mormon, not the actual Mormons, but the Book of Mormon, and a dash of Midsummer to act as a spice. You see, they'll come for you with smiles, they'll wrap their arms around you, and they will reshape you into their form. If you won't bend, if you won't show some flexibility, if you won't agree to their conditioning, well, they'll break you instead. You see, they know what's best for you. You may not know what's best for you, but the Wardens know what's best. Their progenitor is simply known as Mother, which isn't an unusual epithet given the familial nature of many accursed and the families with which we find ourselves aligned. However, Mother claims to be linked to all of them by blood. Even Wardens who ultimately join the family voluntarily or are brought in from other sources or find a curse passed on to them for some other means, Mother will say, you may not realize it, but deep, deep, deep in your past, I was your mother. Oh, she's committed to the fact. This isn't just some symbolism, it isn't a metaphor as far as she's concerned. She was the beginning of all of them, and therefore she is also their end, the Alpha and the Omega. She is ever present. She is overwhelming. She is cloying. Often when you describe someone as a wet blanket, it's to imply a certain amount of weakness, soppiness. No. She is a wet blanket that would be used to suffocate somebody in a torture chamber. She is a wet blanket that would be used to lower someone's body temperature so that they become desperate and pliable. Mother may be the most terrifying family head that I have ever had the misfortune of encountering. Because everything she does, she claims, is done with love. She genuinely can't see how her actions restrict and stifle others, let alone her own family. And naturally, it's as is sometimes the way with abusive families, her children do as Mother does. They don't want to disappoint her, after all, and they know how angry she can get when she wouldn't say their commands, but her lessons aren't followed. The Wardens search for people in distress, and they help them. And some of these people are genuinely helped, and they are genuinely in distress beforehand. The Wardens can be a powerful force for good. But they never just stop with plucking the desperate from danger, placing them on the pavement with a thumbs up and a look left and right before crossing next time, citizen, before flying off. No. The Wardens shepherd the injured and the tormented. They bring them to their communities, their churches, their family homes, and they bathe, they clothe, they feed the poor bastards. Feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, their ward thanks them for such charity and heads for the door. But what's this? Locks? Multiple locks? Chains? Real or metaphysical? They may even find they're trapped in a liminality, because the Wardens of all the dead families know liminalities better than any other. They specialise in them, especially liminalities that can be used as prisons. And so many can, so many interstitial zones, so many shattered spaces. The Wardens don't appreciate shattered spaces because they tend to make the inhabitants suffer, but interstitial zones, especially ones with looping time mechanisms, those can be perfection for the tutelage of those within. The ward will turn scared, shocked, or questioning, why can't I leave? Because you're not better yet, dear. And then the process begins. The process. With a capital P. You hear about it a lot when you're around the Wardens, though my understanding is it differs from place to place. The Wardens are a large family, global, and so it's impossible that the process is rigid and uniform everywhere, but ultimately the objective is the same. They indoctrinate those they save into the style of thinking, dressing, behaving, that the Wardens prefer. They shake and beat and break down those who resist. They cuddle and care. They feed their dear, dear new initiate, until finally they can emerge into the world a better form of person, or indeed ghost, because the dead, and the Wardens in particular, don't just restrict these treatments to the living. Well, that would just be limiting. No. They target the accursed. They target other dead as well. Of all the dead families, the Wardens are the most interested in bringing over converts from the Shades, from the Zeds, from the Furies especially. What a waste of emotion. How destructive. When they could be taught to love, to save, to care for others. They've saved thousands of lives. Don't get me wrong. Wardens turn addicts, people close to ending their lives, habitual criminals, and of course the beaten and the bruised into new bodies, new people, new minds, new perspectives, fresh, better in every way. They genuinely turn lives around. They just feel compelled to leave their stamp or brand on anything that they send back out into the world. I understand in one Warden dungeon, family home in Canada, rural Canada, they've had the same wards imprisoned for years. They just can't crack them. These are apparently some high-profile accursed. Maybe well over a decade these accursed have been imprisoned there because they cannot get the refinement quite right. They cannot break down the personality just as they would like. They want these subjects emerging as perfect specimens, and anything less would be a failure. That vast farmhouse just outside Alberta is a nightmare. A genuine nightmare. Don't forget that the Wardens are dead. This isn't just some mortal cult addicted to hot housing and indoctrinating subjects. They exist for this purpose, because something in them broke before they died. They can never fill that hole. They need to keep pouring compassion and gratitude into it, but they will never feel sated. They are therefore the closest dead, I would say, to the voids, if you're familiar with that monstrous phenomenon. And as dead, they can haunt their targets forever, or at least until their death. And they won't necessarily stop there, because they will work as hard as they can to ensure that anyone who passes through their hands and for some reason isn't converted will come back as a phantasm, and there the lessons can start again. Remember how I said all dead have a way of making others feel like they are benevolent, functional, and so forth? Well, you can argue that the Wardens are exactly that. They have this altruistic veneer, and sure, they do help others. But think for a moment of a young Warden and all they go through when they die and return as a member of this family, now accursed. Some have already grown acquainted with the family through their mortal years, and so they already know the steps, the lessons, the lyrics. They know the role they have to play. Those are the lucky ones, because they may have built up a shell and a cynicism, a healthy cynicism, through life that they can then carry into Undeath and resist some of the more destructive aims of the family. Others find themselves hit with a shock, and just as the down-and-out vagrant is brought to the farmhouse for charity and protection, well, the new son is expected to divest himself of his old life and embrace this new one. And if he's to be a warden, he can't go around acting like anything else. Anything other than a warden would again be a failure, would be, well, a shame. And a shame in a deep and depressing way, and the Wardens have no time for depression. Well, if he is unprepared, if he's unprepared to take his medicine, how about some extended time forced outside of his body, so he can think about it while suffering the rigours of formlessness? How about some Clockwork Orange-style brainwashing until he gets the idea? How about suffering until he sees the light? You can understand why there's an entire branch of the Warden family dedicated to tearing down the family's central pillar, its whole ethos. These anti-Wardens are noble, you could argue, but in their own way they are just a skewed reflection of the family. They want to rescue their nephews, their nieces, their cousins, their aunts, their uncles from the Wardens. They want to free them. But they don't want those relatives to repeat offend, so to speak. So they teach them how they should act. How to help those caught in cults, for instance. That's a major objective of the anti-Wardens. Religious orders and abusive households. They want to rescue people from those, and then they want to teach them how to be. And if they don't do it just right, well, they can stay a little longer, suffer a little more, because suffering is a good way of learning what's wrong and what's right. You can see how Mother holds such a tight grip over this family, can't you? The rot starts with her, and it's not going away anytime soon.